You really let her dress like that? No wonder she cries at daycare every morning. She said it while standing in the middle of my living room, still wearing her coat, her purse not even off her shoulder yet. It was 7:42 inches the morning. My daughter was right there, 6 feet away, pushing a toy stroller across the hardwood floor, and my sister-in-law had already found her first thing to critique before she'd even closed the front door behind her. My name is Claire Donovan. I've been married to my husband for 4 years. I have a 3-year-old daughter named Lily, a freelance design business I built from nothing, and for the last 2.5 years, I have shared my home with a woman who was never invited into it, at least not by me. It started with the key. When Lily was born, my mother-in-law suggested we give a spare to someone local. She lived 3 hours away and couldn't always drop everything. My husband's older sister lived 20 minutes from us. She'd just gotten her real estate license. She kept her own schedule. It made sense at the time, in the blurry, sleepless fog of new parenthood, to hand over a small brass key to someone who could be there fast if something went wrong. Nothing ever went wrong, but my sister-in-law came anyway. At first, it was Tuesdays. She'd drop by after a showing, bring coffee she knew I didn't like, and sit at my kitchen island for 45 minutes talking about her listings while I tried to work. I told myself it was temporary, a phase, something that would naturally fade once the newborn haze wore off and we both settled back into our own routines. It didn't fade. The Tuesday visits became Tuesday and Thursday. Then Tuesday, Thursday, and whenever she felt like it. She stopped texting ahead. She said she worried about waking Lily with the notification sound, which was so thoughtful and so completely backwards that I almost laughed the first time she said it. You don't text because you're thinking of my daughter, but you let yourself in with a key because that's just easier for you. I said nothing. My husband said she meant well, she was just protective of us. Family looks out for family. He'd grown up hearing that. It was practically a motto. What I noticed, and what he didn't, was the way she looked at things when she walked through. It wasn't the look of someone checking in. It was the look of someone taking inventory. Her eyes moved across the counter, the sink, the baby gate at the bottom of the stairs. She'd open a cabinet for a glass of water and hold it open just a half-second longer than necessary, scanning the shelves. Once, she picked up a piece of junk mail from the edge of the counter, turned it over, set it back down. She didn't say anything, she just noted it. I started noticing other things too. Lily's pediatric appointment got mentioned at Sunday dinner before I'd told anyone about it. My husband asked how it went. I said fine. He said his sister mentioned Lily had seemed tired lately at pickup. I stared at him. His sister had never done a single daycare pickup. He blinked. Must have gotten it wrong, he said. Then I found out about the texts. Not all at once. In pieces, the way you find out most things that are being kept from you. A comment here, a reference there. My husband mentioned casually that his sister had sent him a photo of Lily's room because she thought the blackout curtain had fallen. I asked to see the photo. He showed me. It was not the curtain. It was a wide shot of the entire room. Lily's clothes half folded on the chair, a cup of water on the nightstand, a book on the floor. Nothing wrong, just documented. When I asked why she was sending him photos of our daughter's bedroom, he said she was just keeping him in the loop while he traveled. He was gone twice a month for work. She knew that. She was helping. I lay awake that night replaying every visit, every lingering look, every comment she had ever made to me versus the ones she made about me. And I began to understand the difference between someone who shows up because they care about you and someone who shows up because they want to know everything you do. My sister-in-law did not love me. She tolerated me. And she was building something, slowly and carefully, in the space between me and my husband. The worst moment didn't happen in my home. It happened at his parents' house, at a birthday dinner for my father-in-law, 30 people around 2 pushed-together tables, the kind of loud, overlapping family evening where everyone talks over everyone and no one really listens. My sister-in-law sat across from me. She'd been quieter than usual all night, which I'd noticed but chosen not to think about. After the cake, while people were still milling around with their plates, she stood up and said she had something she wanted to address. Because she felt it was important, and she loved this family too much to stay silent. The table went still. She said she'd been worried about Lily for a while. That she'd seen things. That she didn't want to overstep, but she felt like someone needed to say something before it became a bigger problem. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as performed grief. Then she slid her phone across the table to my husband's mother. Photos. A dozen of them. Lily's room messy before bedtime. The kitchen counter at 6 a.m., dishes from the night before. A laundry basket in the hallway. The back door left open on a warm afternoon while I was standing 6 feet away in the yard with Lily. She said the back door one like it was a crime scene. I could feel everyone looking at me. My husband's aunt reached over and touched my arm and said nothing, which was somehow worse than anything she could have said. My husband sat very still. He was doing the thing he always did when he was caught between two things he didn't know how to reconcile, going completely blank, waiting for someone else to interpret the situation for him. My sister-in-law said, "I just think Lily deserves consistency." I say this with love. With love. I didn't cry. I wanted to. I felt it building behind my sternum like pressure in a sealed container. But I had learned from 3 years of watching this woman operate that tears were exactly what she was hoping for. Tears would become part of the story. Overwhelmed, emotional, unstable. I had watched her narrate my life to other people often enough to know what vocabulary she preferred. So I smiled. I thanked her for her concern. I said Lily was doing wonderfully and I was grateful for everyone's care. I excused myself to use the restroom, and I stood at the sink for 4 minutes with the water running, not crying, just breathing, staring at the grout lines in the tile until my hands stopped shaking. In the car on the way home, my husband said, "She's worried. She might not have the best approach, but her intentions are good." "Intentions," I said. He said, "Let's just talk about it later." We didn't talk about it. We went home, put Lily to bed, and I lay on my side of the mattress staring at the ceiling while he fell asleep in 11 minutes the way he always did, as if nothing had weight, as if the floor of our marriage was solid and even, and not quietly being excavated from below. I did not sleep. I made a list in my head. The next morning, I called a locksmith. I didn't tell my husband. I asked the locksmith to replace both deadbolts and install a smart lock system on the front door and the back, the kind with a code and an app and a log that recorded every entry attempt with a timestamp. I paid for it out of my own business account. I had the cameras installed the same day, 3 of them, small and visible, positioned at the front door, the back door, and the main hallway. Not hidden. Present. Then I called a therapist, not because I was falling apart, but because I needed documentation that I was not. I attended 3 sessions. I was honest. She wrote a summary confirming voluntary attendance, full stability, no concerns. I asked for a copy. She gave me one. I scheduled Lily's 6-month developmental checkup 2 weeks early and brought a written list of detailed questions about language, milestones, and social development and sleep quality. The pediatrician answered everyone. At the end, I asked if she had any concerns about Lily's environment or care. She said Lily was one of the healthiest, most socially engaged 3-year-olds she saw. I asked if she'd be willing to put that in writing. She looked at me for a moment, then said, "Of course." I went home and I waited. I waited 3 weeks. I let my sister-in-law text my husband twice about dropping by. I said nothing. I let the smart lock log fill up with entries I reviewed every evening after Lily went to bed. She came 4 times in those 3 weeks. Once at 8:20 inches the morning on a Thursday. Once at 2:15 on a Saturday while we were at the park. Once at 6:45 on a Tuesday evening. Once on a Sunday at noon. Every time, the old key turned. Every time, the new lock did not open. Every time, she left without ringing the bell. She never told my husband she'd tried to come by. I let that sit with me for a moment every time I reviewed the log. She was visiting my home without telling him. She was building her file without building it in front of him. She needed me not to know, and she needed him not to know she was there. That was the piece I had been missing. This was not about helping. This was not even entirely about me. This was about maintaining access to something she believed she had a right to, without accountability, without oversight, without my husband asking questions she didn't want to answer. 3 weeks in, I called her. I kept my voice warm. I said I had been thinking about what she said at the birthday dinner, and that I appreciated her caring about Lily so much. I said I'd love it if she came by Thursday morning, just the two of us, so we could talk properly. She paused. She said she'd been meaning to reach out too. She said she thought that was a great idea. I said, come around 9. Thursday morning, 8:57. The front door camera caught her walking up the path. At 9:01, she put her key in the lock. The lock beeped. Access denied. She rang the bell. I opened the door with a full smile. She looked at the door handle, then at me. I said, "Oh, I updated the lock system last month. Security upgrade, come on in." She stepped inside slowly, the way a person steps into a room they're no longer certain belongs to them. Her eyes moved immediately to the camera in the hallway, then to the one near the kitchen doorway. She didn't say anything about them, but something shifted in her posture. I made 2 cups of coffee. I set them on the kitchen table with the calm of someone who had rehearsed this morning many times. "I've been thinking a lot about what you shared at Dad's birthday," I said. She nodded, smoothing her expression back into concern. "I hope you know it came from a place of love." "I know it did," I said. "Which is why I want to be open with you too." I slid a folder across the table. She looked at it before she opened it. Inside was Lily's pediatric report, 2 months of growth charts, vaccination records, developmental assessments, the therapist's letter, a printed copy of Lily's daycare progress notes, which used words like curious, confident, and socially thriving. She turned the pages slowly. I said, "I also wanted to make sure we were on the same page about the house. Since you've had concerns." She set the folder down. Her voice came back with an edge she was trying to sand down. "I've only ever tried to help." "I know," I said. "Actually, that's something I wanted to show you." I picked up my phone. The living room television turned on. The footage was clear. Timestamps in the lower corner. Her walking into my front hallway on a Tuesday in March, setting her purse on the hook that was mine, moving through into the kitchen and opening the cabinet under the sink. Taking a photo of something I still don't know what, then walking down the hallway and opening the door to Lily's room while Lily was at daycare and I was in my office 20 feet away without any idea she was in my house. Footage from the Saturday we were at the park, her standing in my kitchen for 11 minutes. Footage from Sunday. Her picking up the same junk mail I'd watched her pick up before, this time actually photographing it. She stood up. Her voice came out hard and flat, the concern stripped away entirely. "You recorded me. In my family's house." I tilted my head. "In my house," I said. "Yes." "This isn't right." She was reaching for ground to stand on and finding nothing. I was worried about Lily. "A concerned aunt does what she can." "A concerned aunt calls ahead," I said. "She knocks. She asks." She picked up her purse. I could see her recalculating, deciding whether to push harder or retreat. She was used to retreating being free. Retreating had always just meant waiting until the next time. I said, "I haven't shown you the last thing yet." She stopped. I set a printed page on the table. She looked at it without touching it. It was a text thread. Her number. My husband's number. Messages from the past 4 months. Photos of the house, captioned with her words. "She seems scattered lately. Lily was crying when I came by today, not sure why. You should ask her about the back door. She left it open again. Have you thought about whether the current arrangement is sustainable?" The current arrangement. She looked up at me. I said, "I've also found the thread in your family group chat. The one that doesn't include me. Where you've been sharing photos and suggesting my husband speak to a family attorney about what options he might have if things don't improve." The room was very quiet. My husband walked in from the hallway. I had asked him to come home early, told him only that there was something he needed to hear from both of us together. He stopped in the doorway and looked at his sister, then at me, then at the TV screen still paused on footage of her standing alone in our kitchen on a Saturday afternoon. She moved fast. She turned to him with her eyes already softening, already reshaping the story. "I've been worried," she said. I didn't know how to bring it up directly. "Claire can be defensive?" I said. "Unstable? Those are the words you've been using in the group chat." My husband looked at his sister for a long time. He was doing that blank thing again, but I could see beneath it now that it was not blankness. It was something slower and more painful, the process of reorganizing everything he thought he understood about his family. He said, "How long have you been coming here without telling me?" She said, "I was looking out for Lily." He said, "That's not what I asked." There was nothing left to reconstruct. No version of events she could offer that the timestamps didn't already contradict. She tried twice more, small attempts, and each time the silence that followed was heavier than the one before it. I said, "I'm not going to stand in the way of your relationship with Lily. She loves her aunt. I would never take that from her. But I need you to understand that what you have been doing, the unauthorized entries, the documentation, the campaign in my husband's family to paint me as unfit is not something I'm willing to absorb anymore." She said nothing. I said, "The smart lock has been updated. Your key doesn't work and it won't be replaced. If you want to visit, you text first. You get a response. You come when you're invited. That is the only version of this that exists going forward." She looked at my husband. He did not look away from her. She said, "I was protecting this family." He said, "From what? From Claire? From her own home?" And that was the question she could not answer. Because the honest answer that she had decided somewhere along the way that my presence in this family was a problem she was quietly solving was the one answer that made everything else make sense and also made everything else unforgivable. She left without saying goodbye. She didn't look at me on the way out. She pulled the door behind her, and I heard her heels on the porch steps, and then the sound of her car backing out of the driveway, and then nothing. My husband stood in the kitchen for a while without speaking. I didn't fill the silence. He had been handed a lot of things in the past 40 minutes, and he needed to decide what to do with all of them. I was done deciding for him. Eventually, he said, "I should have paid more attention." I said, "Yes." He said, I thought that was just how she was." I looked at him. How many times had I heard that sentence? That exact shape of it, that same gentle absolution dressed up as explanation. I thought about saying something. I had a great many things I could have said, but I had also been married to him for 4 years, and I knew the difference between the moment a person finally sees something and the moment they need to be told they should have seen it sooner. One of those conversations is useful. The other is just pain for its own sake. I said, "I need you to be here now." He said, "I'm here." I said, "I mean going forward. I need you to be someone I can tell things to without having to document them first." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That's fair." It wasn't the grand speech I might have imagined on those nights lying awake, replaying every slight and every excuse and every time he'd chosen the easier explanation over the true one. It was not cinematic. It was quiet and honest and a little bit late, and it was real. We sat at the kitchen table together for a while. Lily was at daycare until 3. The house was still, the cameras were on. The lock was changed. My sister-in-law texted my husband that evening. She said I had weaponized private family concern and turned it into an attack. She said she hoped he could see that clearly. He read the message while I was watching, and then he set his phone down without responding. She texted again 3 days later. He let me read it first, and then replied himself, briefly, that he needed time and space to process things, and that she should respect that. She didn't respond to that one. A month passed. Then another. She sent a birthday card for Lily, and we let Lily open it. My husband called her once for 40 minutes, and I didn't ask what they talked about. Whatever it was, he came out of it quieter but not broken, the way people come out of hard conversations when they've finally said the thing that needed to be said. She texted me once. It was short. It said she hadn't intended to hurt me, and she hoped we could move past things in time. I read it 3 times. I thought about all the things I could say. I thought about pointing out that intent and impact are not the same thing. I thought about asking which part she regretted, the years of entering my home uninvited, or just the part where I found out. I put my phone down. I went and sat on the floor with Lily, who was building a tower out of blocks with the focused intensity of someone who has never been told she lacks the capacity to manage her own environment. I watched her stack one block carefully on top of another, and then another, until the tower was taller than her head and wobbling beautifully on the edge of falling, and she looked at me with pure delight, and I thought this is what was always worth protecting. Not the house. Not the image. Not the version of myself I had to defend in other people's text threads and family group chats. The morning light. The tower of blocks. My daughter's face. This small, specific life that I had built and maintained and loved without an audience, without applause, without anyone's approval. The tower fell. Lily laughed so hard she fell sideways. I caught her before she hit the floor, and she grabbed my sleeve, and the two of us sat there in the wreckage of wooden blocks, laughing at nothing and everything, and the lock on the front door was mine. And the house was finally, completely, mine.